Yeah, that's because you're live, Nina.
Mhm. Hi, live.
Hello, Albert Burkhead. So Albert Burkhead, Nina, is a YouTube magic historian. He's done a lot of really great videos about that community. He has no idea who Nina Dobner is. Why don't you tell him who Nina Dobner is? In
Okay.
fact, yeah, no, go for it. Who
All
are
right.
you?
Hi, Albert, that I can't see, but you can see me, which is an odd experience. Nina Dobner is a game maker, I guess, most recently in BD, started in the UK. Actually, this was not on the list of things I was going to talk about, but this is a funny one that you might not even know. Bill. I started in video games because I worked for a company called Attica, like it was a small company, and we were making multimedia encyclopedia where you still had to like and burn a worm with your gold disc, and that's how you
Oh,
replicated
yeah.
it. We made a CD-ROM that outsold in Carter, which was a huge deal in England, and we were playing a lot of Myst,
Yeah, yeah, I
and
remember that.
we loved Myst, and you couldn't. I think Riven was the follow-up to Myst, and it wasn't being imported into England. So
Mhm.
we literally said we will become your UK distributor, and we will localize Riven and distribute it across Europe because me and my boss wanted to play it. So that's how I got into actually making video games. Is we distributed Riven and we localized it, and then we started making video games. Like I made really weird stuff before that. Like I made stuff for St. John Ambulance, which is super fun. Like it was really fun. And then after that, I made a couple of bespoke independent video games, which we localized. And then in '98, EA called me and said, we're doing, we want somebody to run our online division in Europe. So that was that. And it was all literally because
That's
we wanted their video game.
That's pretty wild. Like, who's at EA at this point when you joined? I don't know your origin story, and that's actually a story I added this morning sneakily to,
Oh,
to
that's
our
funny.
topic
Yeah,
together. I'm like, who are you?
you must be
How
okay.
did you become this
That
person that you are today?
was my origin story. Yeah, who was there? I mean, some of the people that was still are still there. Dave Gardner was there. I worked for a guy called Michel Cassias, who was French. Andrew Corcoran, who was there. So there was still some players in the UK. And then I moved to the US. Actually, I knew I was staying here. Well, I didn't know I was staying here forever, but I came over for 3 months. I can tell you the date, February the 22nd, 2000, to
Hmm.
consult for 3 months because there was like a blink of the eye where the UK was more advanced in internet than the US, and they couldn't hire online producers here in 2000. So I came out to train people. EA was doing EA.com right after that.
Sure.
Um, so I came out to train people, and then I met my husband of a decade more. I say that because, as you know, we're no longer married, although he now still lives with me. Very strange. So I moved here on the Tuesday, and I met him on the Friday, and he's a large part of the reason that I am still here. Yeah, so that was my origin story.
How San Francisco are you, or how Bay Area are you? Those are different things, right?
I
How,
think
like,
I'm really San Francisco. Like I remember even so I've lived in this house. You can't see much of this house, but it's a Victorian house built in the late 1800s. You can't really see but as you know, there's bookshelves all over the house. I bought a lot of I own a lot of books, but when I moved here, I remember telling my mom, I'm like, my best friend's gay. There's a 6'4" transvestite, but all these words that we wouldn't say right now, building my bookshelves. And that was in 2000.
mhm.
Now, like I mentioned it, my ex-husband lives in the basement. It's a very San Francisco life. I certainly embrace it. I think, um, you and all of my friends would say I'm a very open-minded person. So, even
Yeah.
now, like, even though, the San Francisco gets such a bad rap, but I still love it. There's nowhere you can see theater and, I love to dance. There's great house music. There's
I
punk
think
house scene. There's
it's an
amazing
above average
restaurants.
city.
Yeah.
It's above average. I always thought it was above average, but it wasn't my
Well,
first city, and it really matters. Like, your first city, it's a lot like, high fidelity, where the first breakup you have hurts you the most. Like, the first city you go to and live
yeah.
in first, like, you love the most, and then you just decreasingly love the city. So if you move around a lot, my god, I'm sorry for you. Like, you
Hey,
just
so
will never love the
what's your favorite?
I liked Seattle a lot. That's where a lot of the people I'm talking to on these calls are from. And, I lived in the city and then I lived in West Seattle, and it was just a gorgeous place to live. Very open and spacious. And it was better for introverts because there was so much space. You go to San Francisco, you're like competing for a coffee shop table. And don't tell me it's not true because I know it's true.
Yeah,
I have had to fight. You have to elbow your way in, and then the baristas are like uniformly like they train not to be friendly on purpose. It's like completely weird.
you have to have the attitude.
It's like the opposite of congeniality. It's like, I will never smile again in this life, and you have to wonder what made them that way. Like, why are you this way?
Yeah.
Anyway, you love it, and I
Cute. But I mean, my first city was London, and I still love London too. But so I think I'm one of the only people in San Francisco that still thinks San Francisco is cheap because it's still cheaper than London.
yeah, I think
You're
Albert
making me
asked
read
a
the side thread. There's no drama. There is so little
no
drama
drama.
that he now lives in the downstairs rental unit with his new
What
girlfriend.
what games were we playing in 1998 even at all? Like, you would have, like,
uh,
a Sega Genesis or Sony PlayStation or
yeah, we had
Sonic the
so the ZX.
Hedgehog?
I ended up but this earlier than that. We had the ZX Spectrum before that. I'm trying to think. I don't think I had a system at home. Oh, no,
Doom?
we did, and, my then husband, I'm making it sound like I've had millions of
How
husbands.
many of these have you been No.
Two.
Keep going.
Just a few. He was playing a lot of Command& and Conquer. He played Command& and Conquer all the
Yeah.
time, and I'd go upstairs, and all I would hear is, you building, which is hilarious because I ended up, as you know, working with, Joe Coogan and hiring him to work on the remake of CNC for EA, but I had to tell him that I basically lost a husband to those early games. That was when the video do you remember the video was like every other line?
Yeah.
Status, that was a I remember playing Quake with people at work, and I was so
Yeah, that was a big
terrible
game.
because I lived in Oxford and I was working in London, so we'd play games after work just to let the traffic go down, but I literally I still do this now, and I do it on Roblox. I'm like the camera's pointing up, and I'm falling through the geometry, and that was how I was. When I played Quake, I had to find a safe space, like
Yeah.
somewhere to fire at people, and then if anybody ever found me, I was dead. So I was terrible at that. Do not advise putting me on your team at Quake. But I remember, like I said, I wasn't a big gamer, and I came into work once with my first gaming blister, and it was, Oddworld, and I remember my team being so proud of me. They're like, "We're so proud of you." And it was all I would be like, "Oddworld, follow me." Yeah,
That's pretty cute.
yeah, and
Is there a game that, like, screams Nina Dobner to you? Like, what is the most Nina Dobnerian game?
oh, man.
Who is
Well,
your closest relative as a video game?
I don't know if I can answer that.
You have to? We can't move forward in the conversation unless you do. It's awkward.
I played a few Lara Croft games and I liked it because even with the giant boobs, which you probably remember I had before I had cancer, I used to like that because she was a strong female protagonist. So the
Mhm.
sexism never really bothered me about that. I'm like, she's hot. It's fun to play. She's shooting people. I loved the T2 stand-up video game. So I really liked shooting games that weren't shooters.
Mhm.
Um, my favorite game of all time, it doesn't scream Nina Dobner, it's a slightly different question, is PvZ. Like, I don't yeah, you can see a few things. So
PvZ is pretty good.
I love
Um,
PvZ. I remember I was working at EA, um, when Mike Verdu found PvZ, and we played it all the time. And actually, I still have the original on my phone. Like, I still play that with Evie. Um, I'm thrilled that they just re-released it. Like we and
yeah,
Evie and I are playing like the head-to-head version now, which if you haven't played is hilarious. You have to get to
that
like, I don't
sounds
know,
fun.
level 13 before you can play. But yeah, there's some great plans for that franchise, which I'm a huge, huge supporter of. So slightly different answer to that question.
Is it, like, predatory, or is it, like, back to the way it was back then from, like, an ad and microtransaction perspective?
The Reloaded is the first game basically.
Right.
And then there's more plans for more plans for other. I don't know anymore. I'm not there anymore. We'd have to ask somebody else. We'd have to ask Nick.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, the Reloaded is basically the first one, but on a gaming Steam, so you can play it on your computer. Highly recommend you do it with the girls.
Okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah, I'm when you talk about a shooter that you don't actually shoot people, I'm level 10 now at Splatoon, but I've never played a game, on this account. My kids have, like, snuck the Nintendo behind my back, and
Mm.
they're learning how to play first person shooters by painting people to death.
Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah, I
Yeah.
worked on Battlefront, as you know, for several years and never
Star
played it.
Wars.
I could never do that. But I used to give it to my boyfriend Bill, and his daughter Ava was probably, well, hold on, she's 15 now, so between 10 and 11.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm pretty sure that's an M-rated game, but they used to play it all the time, and they'd be on the same team, and he'd be like, "Ava, Ava, shoot that guy!" And I'd be like,
I worked on one too. We all have our story of working on a shooter, I think, if we've been around for a long time. Mine's now a game mode in Fortnite, which I take no credit for, but, the team that was working on it, was really talented, and I felt like I was good, so when I would play in practice against other players, I would probably be in the top 10 percentile, but when I played against people who played this kind of game a lot, I was the worst player on earth. It's not a very, like, forgiving genre of game, right? Anyone who's, like, in the top 0.1% is, like, going to win every time, it feels like, right? So
yeah,
it's not
I'm
my
a
it's
typical, like, old gamer. If you're 'cause you all of those things, even with Fortnite, where you still have to figure out your locomotion and the camera and switching your weapons out. Like, I used to like literally the old style shooters where you pressed a pedal and you ducked. So that was you're only managing 2 things.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There was this period in the '90s where like, we have Nintendo, and it's really fun. Maybe it's early 2000s, and then, like, controllers come out with infinite buttons, and gaming become levels up and becomes more hardcore for people who want that. But, like, for people who don't, it became sort of this alienation moment where, um you know, you can play Halo or whatnot with your friends, but you're at a disadvantage if you're not, like, playing with these new controllers all the time. It was definitely an interesting sea change moment. Like, I was fine with it, but I also, like, felt it, if you know what I mean, and mobile
Yeah.
gaming's a reversion, if anything.
I mean, if you look at competitive gaming now, we are literally too old for it. It's to do with reaction time, and I don't know what the peak is, but it's probably in your early 30s. Like, you couldn't play against the best of the best now.
Oh, I think it's like a teenager.
Maybe. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you're right. Um, yeah, that was a kind of but that was actually kind of a bummer for me, especially because I was working at EA and I like to play games and I'm really competitive. I just won't play those games because I'm useless at them. So if I'm gonna
It
suck at something, I wanna play something else. So I guess the stuff that we did used to play was, and I got competitive at that, was like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So Edie's learning to play, Smoke on the Water right now, like, dun, 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 and I'm like, the only reason I know that song is from Guitar Hero. So
yeah, that was a really fun franchise. It's like
yeah.
a storied moment from, like, gaming where we would all play together, before the online
Oh, yeah.
upgrades.
I'm so bummed I gave that stuff away. Like, I mean, it took up a lot of space. Like, I had the red guitar, and I was super psyched about it, and there's nothing I'd love to play that with Evie now. I mean, I've
Mhm,
gone on eBay and looked to see how much it would be to replace all that stuff, and I'm just kicking myself that I didn't say that thing a lot of that was Dreamcast, wasn't it?
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question for you. So you worked on a lot of different IPs, and I think so. You worked on Lord of the Rings, you worked on Star Wars, and there's more. Indiana Jones. What else you have?
Batman. I mean, I worked
Mhm.
on all of EA's movie licenses, all of their big, Hollywood IP.
What's your favorite? And also, like, what's the IP that you wish you could have worked on that you didn't get a chance to? And even
Mhm.
if picking a favorite makes someone that you worked with prior cry a little bit, that's okay. We don't want to hurt
Oh, well,
people's
it's
feelings.
easy, and nobody would be surprised about it. My favorite was definitely Lord of the Rings for
Oh, okay.
different reasons. I love Lord of the Rings. I read it several times as a kid. Like, I had
Yeah.
glandular fever when I was pretty young and, was bedridden. I read Lord of the Rings for the first time, and I read it as a single book. And I just remember it being so weak, because it's a big chunky book, like, I'd have to, like, hold it up, and then if you were this side of the book, so I've always liked Lord of the Rings, so working on that, it sounds kind of cheesy, but it really was like a dream come true. Um And not only was I working on a franchise I loved and knew inside out. I mean, I was working with great people. I worked with Margaret Foley-Move. I worked with Neil Young. I loved the team. I loved the way Neil ran the team. He
Hmm.
was one of the first people that I heard talk about pillars. And I remember hiring my friend Belinda, that you know, of course. And I remember her like being a month in and being like, when you walk around the team, everybody on the team knows what they're making and knows what the pillars of the team was. And I was like, wow, that's I'd never been on a team where that kind of leadership happened before. And we wanted to. I remember I can't even remember what it was. We were all pulled into a meeting, the leadership team, and we had these three pillars. And I don't remember what the three pillars are. It doesn't actually matter right now. But I remember
Yeah.
that somebody wanted to add multiplayer. Um, and multiplayer was going to be really tricky to add at this point. And Neil was like, if we're going to add multiplayer, it needs to be a pillar. Like we have to commit to doing it. If we're going to do it, we really have to commit to it. And
Hmm.
everyone's like, yeah, we want to do it. So it was going to be the fourth pillar. And he was like, no, 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 no. This is a stall. There's no fourth pillar. He's like, if you guys want multiplayer, you have to drop something. And this was like 2 years before Ship. And it was just really refreshing to hear somebody like scoping from the beginning and make people put their money where their mouth is. And then just practically, I got to fly to New Zealand business class. EA was still flying you business class at that point, once a
Hmm.
month. I worked with all the talent. Like I did all the voiceovers, all the interviews. I was in New Zealand literally once a month for the filming over a period of 3 years.
That's pretty incredible
Yeah, it was
opportunity. Yeah.
incredible. Um, yeah, I worked with all of them, like Kate Blanchett, Elijah Wood, and went to the premiere, got to hang out with those guys. So that was probably, yeah, I mean, that would not probably, that was the best job I ever had. And right after that, I did Batman, which was also great because it was filmed in England. So
Hmm.
then I was flying to England all the time. But yeah, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was great because it was so long, and we hired a photographer in New Zealand. I had somebody there full time. We flew somebody there full time that reported to me, and people would ask like really weird questions. Like I remember, um, like a designer wanted to know what Minas Tirith looked like. They were like, "What does the brick look like? Like, can we scan it?" And I went to New Zealand, and Minas Tirith was made out of polystyrene bricks. I
Okay.
remember I literally like bought a polystyrene brick home with me, and I was like, "This is what it looks like." It was filmed in a quarry. Yeah, I think I over answered that question for you.
Yeah, well, you only answered half of it, and then you gave me 2 things to ask you in addition, so you kind of accumulated debt, in in that story. So there are a couple of things. One, like, so I had to fly. I flew to Sweden for work, and then like a month later, I had to fly to Manchester for work, and then I had to do it again. I think, or maybe it was like Sweden and Manchester. And the first time you fly in first class or whatnot, you're like, this is great. I've got an egg to sleep in. I got a little bed. I can watch TV and no one's going to mess with me. I could read books. And then the second time, you just want to like start shaking the cage and like trying to escape. I couldn't stand it. And so I'm like, is this a phenomenon you've experienced or do you always like to fly? You always like to fly?
I love to fly.
Who's
I
broken?
love
You or no, like,
I
I
love
don't
to
know if it's you or
fly.
me.
I love to fly. I love to fly to New Zealand. Actually, so I was very specific about how I wanted to fly. I still am. I wouldn't say that I'm a princess about flying, but I'm very specific about how I want to do things. So I
Mhm,
used to at that time. I don't know how the routes are now. You could fly through Australia, which was slightly quicker, but it really
mhm,
broke up the flight. It ended up being like a 14-hour flight, but you broke it up in the middle. Or you could fly to LA and then change again in Auckland to get to Wellington. And I liked to do it that way because it made you a long chunk. So then you could get on, have 2 drinks, have the free champagne, take a sleeping tablet, and still get 7 hours sleep. And at that
mhm,
point, there was no Wi-Fi on the plane, and I was like, "This is brilliant." Like, you know how busy I am all the time. I'm like, "Nobody can call me. There's no Wi-Fi. I can actually watch a movie and read a book, and I'm getting paid for this because 'cause I'd be flying on work time." So sometimes I didn't even stay over in New Zealand. Like, you landed in the morning, I would do a full day's work. Like, I'd meet with Peter Jackson. You have to go and hang out about around on set, wait for him to have 15 minutes to talk to you. And then I'd take the evening flight out, and people would be like, "Wow, that's so hard work." I'm like, "No, it really isn't. I'm laying on a plane for, 15 of those hours on both sides."
Well, it's a different time period. When did you start? Did you ever read a Kindle? I've only seen books in your world, but do you have a book, an e-reader?
I
What?
do, and the answer is no, I haven't really used them very much. I like paper books,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a million of them, yeah, I have done a couple of trips. I rode to, I think you know this, I rode to Tierra del Fuego on a motorcycle, and that was a 4-month round trip.
Mm.
And there, I should have taken a Kindle then because I think they were around. Um, and at that point, I was still trading out books. Like you'd have to read a book and then find somewhere to trade it out. That would have been good for Kindle. Um,
'Cause
yeah,
my
so
books are enormous now. Like, if I were traveling to like you're talking about, like, I would need to bring, like, a help to carry all the books I wanna read.
with quickly
Uh,
read money, yeah, I do. In fact, I do sometimes get annoyed if I'm just about to finish a book, especially if they're books
mm,
that I really want, because then they tend to be hardbacks. So,
mhm.
for instance, it's coming up right now, like next week, I'm gonna be in Vegas for DICE, and
Oh, yeah.
if I'm just about to finish a book and I know I wanna start one, then I've got at least 2 hardbacks with me, even for an overnight trip. But if I'm going to England, I only need a book or 2 for the plane, and then I have a bunch of books in England. So, and then
Okay.
when I go on
Oh,
holiday,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
if I'm going on vacation, I probably end up with a hardback just because I desperately want to, but I'll make sure the other 3 books that I've got with me are paperbacks.
You've
Yeah,
revealed what I'm
but a lot of my
missing.
suitcase weight is books.
Yeah, you've revealed what I'm missing. I need 2 outposts. Like, if I'm going to another place, I need to set up beforehand a place where
Oh,
my
yeah,
things will be.
yeah.
Well, okay. So there are 2 things I'm interested in. One is, what's the IP you would wanna work with now that you haven't, right? What haven't you had the opportunity to that you would love to work on?
Gosh, I wish I'd known you were gonna ask that question. This is a difficult question because 'cause I've
I know
worked on.
I do, like, have this habit of coming up with
I
questions that interest
know.
me on the fly.
I've worked, on most of the ones. That's
You
not
can
to say.
iterate to it. You can iterate to it, right? You're like, "Alright, I'll throw out SpongeBob. You wanna work on SpongeBob? Probably not, right?" But
No, hold on,
look
while
at
I'm
your
on my
face.
brain, let me see if I can make my brain tick in the background.
Sure.
Look, I would want to work on an IP, like, something that has multiple chapters, multiple books, so that I can work on it for several times and see things evolve. Like, it would have been great to work on The Hunger Games at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I love working on Star Wars because there's so many spin-offs. Same with Lord of the Rings, you get to see people grow up. So, um,
Why isn't the Hunger Games better used in games? Like, it's a natural IP for any so many different game types,
I
but it
think
feels like it's non-existent, right?
I I think that, um, it it's difficult to work with. I may
No,
I
I mean,
no, I
by
may or may not.
default, if the answer is it's not there, it's because the IP holder's not very,
Yeah.
uh,
The IP holder is
good.
difficult to work with, although, Harry Potter has a reputation for being difficult to work with, and I have worked on that and have not found it so. So I think that you just need to understand what's
Yeah.
important to the IP
I
holder.
mean, the Hunger Games has 20 years of not doing anything,
No,
right?
no, so Evie's just about the right age to read that right now, and I
Mhm.
haven't let her, and also I like the movies, so I'd like to watch them with her, but
I mean,
I don't
they're
want her to
great,
watch
yeah.
the movies until she's read the books.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, something like that. I can't think of anything right now, but something like that. So the sweet spot for me, and the reason that one comes up is I think what I do uniquely is I'm really good at working with people that are difficult, because I just don't believe people's assholes for a reason. I hope we're allowed to swear on the
Yeah,
podcast.
it's
Um,
too late.
yeah. So I think I'd be really good at finding out why they're
Yeah, I
difficult.
mean, you worked with IP holders by nature,
And
right?
she's
It's a
really
different.
anti-violence. That's why it's difficult for the Hunger Games, because obviously
Oh,
has the bow, and so
then why
that.
did she write the book? The whole book is incredibly violent. People are
Yeah.
getting killed off all the time. It's great.
I don't remember the
No.
third book that well. That's why I want Evie to read them. I'm reading Evie, his Dark Materials right now, which of course I love because they're set in Oxford and I love Oxford and I still have a
Mhm.
house in Oxford. And I'm reading her my original paperback and I didn't realize how long ago those things were written. And I started reading it and like all the pages fell out. Like I think I used more money in sellotape than I could have just bought another version of the book off of Amazon.
Yeah. I've read all of these books. I think, yeah, the Hunger Games one's interesting to me. It's actually still a beloved IP, and when you look at what like 15 to 34-year-old purple audience or like
Yeah,
gender not important audience, like it's in the top 10. I think still Twilight's still number one. It's like there are these IPs, Vampire Diaries is really high, that are beloved that don't get used at all, and it's completely baffling to me as to why.
yeah.
Other than negligence from the IP holder, which makes you happy in my mind. If Netflix buys Warner Brothers, they're going to do much better things with it. No offense to Warner Brothers. Um, I'm sure Warner Brothers people know. But it is baffling. Anyway, so those are
Yeah.
those. Okay, that's
But I
cool.
know I didn't come up with a specific one, but that would what it would be, like, somewhere where you've got an IP holder. So the sweet spot for me would be somewhere that either there's an IP holder that is, thought of as difficult because I love, there's nothing I like better than being like, "I can probably make this work," and then finding out why the IP holder is difficult and what makes it work, and then making those stories work across multiple media. Like, the sweet spot would be, like, you've got a game, they've got a book, there's gonna be a TV show and a movie, and these things hopscotch each other, and they start to, influence each other. Like like Game of Thrones should have. Like, I was a massive Game of Thrones fan. I think Mark Wallace turned me onto the first book, and I actually, funny enough, I know that I didn't read that right out of the gate because the first one I have is paperback, and then
Mhm.
after that, they're all hardback. Um, and I went to see George R. R. Martin talk, and I loved them, and obviously the TV shows started coming out, and they started to catch up, and at some point I was like, "This is gonna be amazing." Like, we'll know from audiences what people are loving, and they'll start to influence the books. And of course, that didn't happen, and the book series didn't finish, and then the TV series did finish. But something like that where it is working, where people are talking, and then now suddenly you've got all of these creatives, like you've got the writers' room that could be influencing where the TV goes, that's now influencing book number X down the line, and then that would be a dream come true.
Cool. Yeah, you said something in there that may be gone now, but I that all makes sense. Game of Thrones is another IP where you kind of wish that they had been able to do it better, but like the stars didn't really
We
align.
yeah, I still say we because I was there for so long.
Yeah.
We got the rights to Game of Thrones. I was so gung ho for that, and I really wanted to make games, and I worked with Pat O'Brien on that and a few other people. Actually, I didn't
Hmm.
do it. I just suggested it because I loved it so much. Um, and I think we let those we renewed the rights once, and then we let them lapse. I think we let them lapse a year or two before the TV show came out. So I mean, the reason you can't make we couldn't have made those is they would have been massive. I mean, just think about the world building in there. I mean, you
Hmm.
could pull a piece apart, you could pull a story apart, and make a different kind of game, but really it would lead itself to an RTS, and we've seen what's happening to RTSs right now.
Yeah, I mean, Warner looks really interesting to me right now. I don't know, it's hard to know everything they're doing. I haven't talked to those folks in a while, but they have this foresight, I think, to not overinvest in games, kind of anticipating what was coming. And like it's obviously very frustrating to anyone who's trying to do anything interesting or new in that time frame. But it's a good time not to be launching games as a
Yeah.
studio, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird time for IP holders, right? That I was going to ask you a question about IP, but it's a hard one, and I don't know that I want to throw it at you. But it is like if you're thinking as an IP holder now, like how do you think about that landscape? You can press yes or no on talking about this. I have no like horse in any race. You could actually say, I don't want to talk about that at any time, except to the fact that we can debate whether or not we want to talk about something. We have
No,
to be allowed
I
to.
like it. I like it, because that's the world I live in right now. So some
Yeah.
holders. I mean, when I'm trying, so I know from EA, if we are trying to make a movie out of one of our IP, when I'm negotiating with a studio, they want everything, right? They want the TV rights, the movie rights, the book rights, the theme park rights, the rights to make whatever they want. And as a IP holder, as a game holder, we used to have to give them the kitchen sink. We had really no power. If you wanted a Hollywood studio to make one of a movie, you had to make it. But now that really doesn't happen. You can say, I mean, the power's in the IP, and I know that from being at EA and negotiating that. You can say you can have the movie rights, or maybe you can have the live action movie rights, and we're going to retain the animated movie rights, or you can have the animated TV. You can actually section it out and decide which you're going to get, and you can hold on to I don't know, like theme park, whatever you want. Um, if you are an IP holder, the one I think about all the time because I love Ian Banks,
Hmm.
love Banks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's never been like to my knowledge, there's never been an Ian Banks game. I'm sure that a million people are going to tell me I'm wrong about that right now. There's certainly never been there's never been a great movie. Like, how could you avoid, I mean, I'm sure those rights have been sold and sat on but now we could do the culture properly. Like, so if I was, I mean, unfortunately he died a few years ago, but if I owned the rights to Ian Banks, what would I do with them?
Hmm.
I think I'd parcel them out because they're so different. And you really wanna hold on to the core of what makes the IP great. I think that's what Harry Potter actually does well. Like,
Hmm.
J.K. Rowling has a reputation of being terrible to live with and to work with, sorry, but one of the things, and let's not even go into what she's doing as a TERF, but one of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
she does really, really well is, she or her people, is keep the core of Harry Potter, cohesive. Um, and I
She's
think
been that way for a long time. We worked on I worked on a Harry Potter game 25 years ago, and she was like
yeah,
reading the card files, talking to the
yeah,
folks on the team about the IP versus what the design was. She really cared,
yeah,
in a way that's like, in some ways, is inspiring. That is how great products or great
yeah,
IPs kind of get
yeah,
managed, right?
yeah. So I think
Oh,
you
yeah.
need to know it. Sorry, go on. You were gonna ask
No,
something?
I will because I'm gonna write it down to ask you later. Don't let
Oh,
me
okay.
interrupt you.
Well, it's interesting, right? So people hit up EA all the time looking for, uh, products that may not be current, like, so from the catalog, and they always wanna talk about Mirror's Edge, and I'm sure, I mean, Mirror's Edge is pretty relevant right now, but also it has a strong female protagonist, but nobody that worked on those original games is, at EA anymore, so as an IP holder, EA owns the IP, but they don't really have the heart and soul knowledge anymore to make sure that that IP stays solid, and if you license it out, I don't know, so you don't wanna as an IP holder, I wouldn't want to give the power to somebody else. I'd wanna hold on to it. I don't know if that really answers your question.
No, I mean, it gets really complicated when you get into AI and et cetera. I don't think we have to go there, but it is a fun topic that I would go deep into another time. Like, we could spend the entire time. I kinda wanna talk about the mindset of IPs and working with them. So, I've had to do this a few times, but I also enjoy it, and I'll tell you why, and then I wanna get your perspective on how you think about it, from, like, how the mindset's different working with an IP holder versus, say, working at Zynga on a game, which we'll get to, and you're trying to create something new, bland, and fast versus something that's, like, trying to hit a high bar to meet someone's needs. I think there's a big difference in trying to create something great versus trying to move fast and learn things. IPs tend to have expectations baked in, and so you have to have a different mentality to, like, take feedback and adapt to make a great representation of what the IP holder wants. And it's like more like going to a Michelin star restaurant and being front of house than it is like being in the back of house and, essentially trying to figure out what brew is going to work. I don't know. Like, how do you think about it? Because mindset wise, having done both, I find both fun and, but like they require different ways of thinking about. the relationships, right?
Yeah, they do. So I spent 10 years, I think, working on Star Wars, and Lucasfilm, as you know, are very in the weeds. Same
Mhm.
as Harry Potter. They comment on game design. They'll comment on just everything in the. But the goal with them, think they're actually great partners, is to
Yeah.
keep the quality bar really, really high. So as you say, that's more the Michelin star. Everything needs to be perfect. And where that actually ends up butting heads with production might be when you need to move fast and when good enough is good enough, and actually the quality is in the quantity rather than in every asset being perfect.
Mhm.
Um, I did work with them though on Indiana Jones at Zynga, so which is a licensed title, and they understood that things needed to turn around and they wouldn't be the same. That wouldn't be the same quality level. Um, it's you've hit on a really interesting topic. And I think about it a lot because I think of Roblox and what they're doing right now. So they're signing on a number of big IP partners.
Mhm.
Um, but those IP partners won't get the same kind of approvals as as if they were making a triple A or even a double A or even like a typical mobile game. So there's asset packs that are going out to all of these, millions, hundreds, thousands of creators who are creating UGC out of these approved assets, but then what they do with them is not approved. So it's tricky right now. So you won't get right now. You're not going to get the EAs and the Warner Brothers of the world saying, "Yeah, here's our most important IP. Sure, you can
Yeah.
run with it." Um, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I mean, obviously, with Fortnite, kind of sits in the middle. You give them a bunch of assets, they'll send assets back. I think it takes like 6 months to turn around a skin. They'll send the skin back to the IP holder to approval, and then they can kind of do what they want with it on their platform. So it really just depends. I think it could go either way right now. I don't see it's going to be such a shock for big IP holders to say our assets are out in the wild and um, people are going to do what they want with it. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, my impression is that they anticipate it and they're essentially building as if that's an option of how the world will play out. We don't really know, right? You can kind of tell political landscapes change and, quickly and also in wildly divergent directions. Who knows who's going to care about what? But IP may matter again in like 3 years
Yep.
in a way that isn't as like thievery forward, right? Or UGC for I think it's thievery because if the IP holders aren't the ones like allowing it, then it's misappropriation.
Well, I think IP does matter. I mean, if you look at Roblox, they are
Mhm.
trying to acquire IP and they're trying to police really rogue use of other people's IP on their
Yeah,
platform, especially because they want to
mhm.
monetize it. It's more like the IP
Makes
holders
sense.
being like I can't imagine right now, knowing what I know of Lucasfilm, working for them for so long, giving a bunch of assets and being like, "Hey, do with as you will." Um, but maybe that's where the world's going because if you don't jump on board, people are gonna do it somewhere else, and you're not gonna get any monetization out of it at all.
I mean, Disney has that deal with OpenAI or whatnot. It's like
Yeah.
you kind of have to have a position on where you think the future is going to go. You're going to have to bet on the direction that you want to bet on. If you want to bet on somehow regulation hits and IP gains value, then you'll do one thing. If you think that like regulation will stay kind of lax, then you have to embrace the future more and more and figure out how you want to do it. A lot of these companies aren't technology companies at heart, which to me makes like gives Netflix a huge advantage in whatever they want to do because they have the best chance of figuring out how to do technology, entertainment, and games integration just based on their DNA, right? And they have a really high bar for what they do, which I appreciate, right? That um,
Yeah, and they can move a little faster too.
mhm,
The OpenAI Disney thing was really interesting because if you had asked me that 5 years ago, I certainly wouldn't have thought that Disney would have been one of the first, major IP people to get on board. I actually think it's a
yeah,
stroke of genius for them. I think it's a really smart move.
yeah. I'm interested in the Epic deal too. It'll be interesting to see how things play out for them, but it's better than sitting and waiting and like, praying for divine intervention in this climate. It's like, you have to make your bets.
Yeah.
And so it's,
Yeah. I
maybe
mean,
that,
with
but
Roblox and Fortnite and these things are so big right now, it's really hard to see how you do anything other than embrace them. And we touched briefly
mhm,
earlier on
mhm,
Lego. Maybe Lego don't need IP because Lego are the IP. But if if you're not gonna be on Roblox platform and you wanna try and do something on the side, you're gonna have to be pretty massive.
mhm.
What's your differentiator? Like, I don't know if your girls are playing Roblox or how much you let them play, but Edie loves it, and when I listen to her, when I play with her, but more when I listen to her talk to her friends, it's not about the game she's playing, like, it's about the, social
Social.
and she's got chat turned off too, so she's normally playing on, Facebook Messenger or something so they can talk to each other, but you're not gonna have to make if you want her to move, she's not gonna move game. Well, you could have the best game ever. Maybe she and her mates will go and play game X over here, but they're gonna drift back to Roblox because that's where their friends are. You're gonna have to somehow move that entire cohort
Mhm.
somewhere else and keep them there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're if you're not Roblox or Fortnite, I know they're trying to age up because they see, issues in that they're just you could take their audience similar to like what Pokemon and Magic have, where Pokemon brings people into the ecosystem and eventually some percentage of them graduate to the better game. I think, that's a threat they see. Maybe, is Grand Theft Auto that? Is it a different thing? There are so many cool things that could happen over the next 10 years, depending on how things play out. I'm certainly like finding on Substack, I want to be able to like quickly develop things with other people and like explore in ways that like don't feel like Roblox or Fortnite to me. Like I don't care about playing in 3D, especially. So I definitely feel what I want missing in the market that is social and different from those other ecosystems. But there are charms. I don't let our we don't really let our kids play a ton of iPad or digital games. In fact, Mike has already asked to have a computer instead of an iPad because
Mhm.
that's more like her bent. So we let Micah do a little Roblox, but it's a fight internally to even get to that point. So I'd say we're closer to draconian than like we're closer to the anti-technology or like not embracing technology unless it's like curated up front, which is not the way I grew up. Um, but you pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
Also, like when I played Girl Gardening, it was infuriating. So I wasn't
I
like,
think we
yeah,
talked
this is
about that.
good.
I'm pretty sure that I had Farmville PTSD when I was playing Grow a
It
Garden.
was so much worse than Farmville for me, like as a predator. Like
Yeah.
it is a predatory game meant to extract money from young people, and
Well, it can't just be though, because Edie's not allowed to spend any money and she still liked
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
But then you're like sitting there just hitting a timer,
well,
not doing
yeah.
anything, right? Yeah, I mean, it's like that is not
It's
what.
pretty frustrating, like, we were playing some dragon game that she wanted to play yesterday, and I was playing it on I'm sitting at my PC, she's playing it on the iPad, and it's so optimized for iPad that again, like, the geometry's broken, and I'm backing into things, and I can't figure out I'm literally trying to chat GPT here. Am I supposed to be using these keys, or is it WAD or whatever? Um yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see. We'll see. Because you're saying, I've got friends with older kids who've churned out of Roblox. I'm like, "Well, where are they?" I'm not sure what's happening. I guess I'll find out when Evie does it.
yeah, it'll happen. I think for sure.
Yeah.
Um, there was something I should have written down. Give me 1 second to see if I can find it. It's a good point. But if I don't find it, I wanted to go back to like evolutions of EA and the aughts. Like when you join it, like you mentioned like pillars and having this studio that operated really well. I was kind of curious if there were other like sea change moments that open your eyes to how like studios should run, right? How like the graduation worked because I hear about it actually from people who are at EA. I talked to Wright Bagwell, who I'll talk to later,
Yeah.
who was at Dead Space 2. And, you know, the way we make games has changed so much over time.
Oh, yeah, for
I think
sure.
there there are nostalgic aspects to the past where you might have separate groups doing separate things, but it all comes together versus today where you're probably moving really fast.
I mean, it was definitely simpler times. Gosh, that makes me sound so old. I am so old. Um, but we still had a GDD. Like when I first moved to the US in 2000, 2001, we are making Godfather, like you had a written GDD. Like people would print it out. And it wasn't
Mhm.
until like, you know, 5 years after that, that just became completely irrelevant. People would work in pods and you'd have one pod doing something and then they could all tie together. Um, I mean, I don't work on AAA games anymore, so I don't have a lot of exposure into how that happens. I know obviously there if you're making a 3 or 4-year game, there's no, assumption that there'll be a design that doesn't evolve over that amount of time because things are moving so fast. Um, I don't know how many more AAA games there's really gonna be actually with all of these platforms and live games. I think that there'll just be several up there that are updated, and they'll morph into new games, but we won't be publishing, multi-million dollar game. They just cost so much money and they take so much time.
You're seeing that with that mobile too, right? You see mobile
Yeah.
games adding games into them or whatnot.
Yeah, I did a talk at EB school, in the maths class, and they were just, like, stunned when I told them how much a triple A game like, they just didn't know what that many noughts looked like. Like, they had no idea what that kind of number meant when you see how much it costs to develop a game. Yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that question. I guess back to the sort of half point, what was good? What's good in development? What remains good no matter how you're making a
Yeah,
game?
yeah,
Is that the leadership is transparent. Like, it was revolutionary for me, and I won't retell the story, but when Neil dragged his leadership team into, a room, and we all understood what we were making, and then we could disseminate it to our teams, and then it
mhm.
waterfell down, I don't know. Um, that was fantastic. And when there are inevitable sea changes or when the market changes and the game changes, just making sure that everybody knows the reason that that's happened. I'm a huge fan of transparency and communication within teams. I think you can't go wrong with it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's certainly my style. Uh, to a fault. No, I think
yeah,
it's certainly
yeah,
my style. There's no reason like, you wanna get to an answer as quickly as possible, and the best way to do that is to be comfortably honest with each other as possible,
yeah,
as quickly and well as you
yeah,
can.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember when I
We talked about. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
no, I interrupted you, go on.
No, after you. I guess what I was going to say is, and it's not exactly new knowledge or is keeping teams together. Like when you do have a team that functions well,
Oh, yeah.
there's just you're a huge step ahead. People speak a language that continues, and figuring out who does want to work together. I think one of the things I learned at Zynga, and I can't remember the exact years I moved places, but Zynga was no longer a startup when I was there, but it still functioned like a startup. And
Mhm.
one thing it did incredibly well was it hired really smart people.
Yeah.
Um, and smart people of every discipline, like smart designers, smart PMs. But it did kind of dump them together and assume that you could just mix those people around, and that it didn't. What there was no like um, cohesive bonding. Um, and
Yeah, scaling was hard.
scaling was hard, but so was giving people the time to integrate, and build relationships. I think people really underestimate the human aspect of
Yeah.
game making. Like you have to respect the people you work with. And at some point, if you respect them enough, you will like them. And if people don't like each other, they won't work well together. And Zynga hired
Products to suffer.
they hired such great people. And some of those people had huge egos. And it's not that you can't work with huge egos, but you typically can't just throw 10 huge egos on a game and expect it to work properly.
Yeah, I think that there will be a lot of things to talk about there, that I will want to go I think will be interesting. There's a lot of, like, case studies about Zynga that we haven't really revisited as a cohort that I think would be it's a fine time to do it. I did remember what I was going to say, and at 48, I wanna, like, get an achievement for that. I do wish that Substack had little, like, flyouts whenever you did a good thing. It's like, "This is not the future." No, There's this question about like how much do you index as a parent on what you want the world to be versus like how the world is, right? When we were talking about Roblox, like it ends up being like the common friction point. And it's a common friction point in making games too. Do you just give people what they want? They seem to want ads of people um, doing a number two at a theme park, right? Like, is that what you want to do? Or do we want to try to figure out what we want society to look like? There have been different ethos at different times, but if you're developing any entertainment, you kind of have to take your perspective on which way you're going to go. Like, are you trying to take a position on what you want the world to be like, or are you trying to just give people what they want? I don't know if you've seen it a lot, but when I think about Roblox, it's like we settled for it, right? And I don't think it's all bad. I've enjoyed playing it with friends at times, but
I think
there's a
that's
question like,
quite
do we care anymore?
well, you started that question with as a parent and kind of ended it with as a game maker, and I think they're different things.
I like that call out.
Um, one of the things we talked about a lot at Zinger, is, I think it's I should remember it. I think it's Henry Ford, right, that had that quote that if you asked people what they wanted before cars, they would have said a faster horse. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly. That
yeah,
comes
it's
up a lot.
understanding what people say versus what they mean. So I think at Zinger, some of the conflict between PMs and designers was that designers thought they knew what people wanted and PMs knew what people did. Um, so designers were like, well, we know the big picture and what they want is a faster car, not a faster horse. And maybe data would tell you they want to go faster, but it doesn't come up with car because it's data. It doesn't extrapolate in the same way a designer's brain would say.
I sure
Um,
like that example.
yeah. But I could argue against myself because I do remember working on an Indiana Jones game, and it was great, that game. The Zinger, Boston team made that game.
Hmm.
Oh, shoot, I hope they did. I better check that one before this
They
actually
did.
goes
They
back to
did. They did.
Montreal. Um,
They did.
but, at some point, the people were getting stuck, and they were all dropping off on level 2 as a level-based game, and we couldn't figure out why people were dropping off, and it was literally that they couldn't find the right brick, and the brick that they were supposed to click on wasn't visually differentiated enough, and
Hmm.
if it hadn't have been for PMs, we wouldn't have known that. So, that really helped the design team, and I'm not saying that's all PM can do. PM, obviously can do a whole ton more, as can UX teams. So it's getting those people to think big picture versus minute to minute is obviously the sweet spot. Um, so then as game makers, do we just give people what they want? I think that is where you get a lot of the Roblox games. And maybe that's why they're not growing their audience. If you're just giving them what they want right now, then you're not really
Yeah.
anticipating what they might want next. Maybe you do need to have some I don't know whether it's on staff. Maybe Roblox needs to have some more creatives and do more of their own games that have higher production values, or maybe they outsource them.
Hmm.
Uh, and then as a parent, I don't know. I remember you mentioned like that, the poo emoji or whatever. I do remember somebody giving Evie a book that was just about talking poos when she was a kid, and I was like, nope, there is plenty of time for smut to come. And I'm all about the poo jokes, but I'm not giving my 4-year-old a book about poo.
Yeah.
Um, um,
The gas we passed. I've been there.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was. It's an English one. My friend was laughing. We did give her the one, Everyone Poops, which, by the way, everyone should give their children. I still like that poop. Do you remember that one? One hump camel did a one hump poop. um,
Uh, yes. Now I can't forget it. I will never read it the same way again.
I have adult friends that have that book. Like adult friends without kids that have Everyone Poops in their toilet. I still think it's a great book. I should go on caution for Everybody Poops.
The thing that concerns me is that like people who are listening won't have known that you stood up when you said it and read it a little bit, and it's like, whoa, that's too much. It's too real.
Oh my gosh.
All right, back to business.
With
Serious.
your huge viewership, we should see a spike now in Everybody Poops sales on Amazon, right?
I mean, you don't come out until like April 17th or 24th. Have you got time to do some build up? You can do hints on your own social network as to what's to come. So why did you go to Zynga? How did this happen to you?
How did I go to Zynga? I was working at EA for Vadu. I followed Vadu around for a while and still would again, still love him. And he was playing, actually he introduced me to PDD back in the day, which I loved.
Mhm.
And then he started playing Mafia Wars, which obviously was a clear sign that he was thinking about moving to Zynga. And Zynga is 4 blocks from my house.
Yeah, it
And
is really good.
I was commuting from San Francisco to LA at the time. So when Mike went to Zynga, I started playing Mafia Wars, and I was so fascinated by it because having worked on AAA games, I'm like, here is this shitty game in a genre that I'm not necessarily interested in, and I just couldn't wait for that little bar to tick across and then turn over to the next level where the same thing happened. And I knew
Mhm.
that I was irritating all of my friends on Facebook, but I asking for the various bits and bobs that you needed. But I
You're
was
not
so
forgiven.
no, my people still give me shit about that. And I'm still friends with people that I've never met because of Mafia Wars, which I guess is interesting. But I couldn't understand what was happening to me. It was before I got into a data-driven company and knew that there were these tiny little dopamine hits coming
Mhm.
to my brain by watching a counter. So I was like, "I need to be part of that." Like, I wanna understand what's happening to my brain and why people play these things, um, like, psychologically. So then, um, I joined Zynga. Can't remember what I came in to do, actually. Yeah, I don't know what I came in to do, but I remember I was supposed to report to somebody, and I couldn't understand what he was asking. I can't tell you the name, but I was like, "I'm
No,
not
it's
gonna
fine.
report." Yeah, I'm not reporting to that guy. I was like, That guy's an idiot." Um, and I ended up reporting to somebody else, and they had no launch. So I came from EA. I don't remember how old I was, but I certainly didn't feel like the adult in the room. But suddenly I realized that nobody at Zynga knew what they were doing and everybody was winging it. And it was literally the first point I realized that it was all about, like, being a leader was all about sounding confident and being arrogant. Because I'd be like, wait, I don't know what necessarily know what's right, but I know that that's all wrong. And I was like, I'm more experienced than half of these people. And it was a great learning lesson for me that you never really feel 100% confident in what you're saying.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
ended up
for sure.
in more of a leadership role than I had anticipated. And Zynga didn't have a launch process. They didn't even have a launch checklist. Like, literally, I made a launch
Yeah.
check. Like, wait, every time you launch a game, you're doing this from scratch. And these are big games. Like, Farmville was out, I think, but we did Farmville 2 and Cityville and
A lot
Frontierville.
of time on the same stack, right? They would share code, so it was or they would have the same yeah, it's
Even
crazy.
even like, just anything you need to launch a game, like, has it approved by legal? Like, I can't remember how many when I put together a launch checklist, it was only 200 things that I knew that we had to do by being on launches. Um, so I think that was one of the first things I did was a launch checklist, and then we didn't have any job family architectures. So there were a bunch of people that needed re-leveling. I just talked to some people recently about acquisitions and about how we re-level people. So it was just getting some fundamental, big company procedures in place to support people, not to slow people down, but if people
Mhm,
want promotion and they didn't know why they weren't getting a promotion, they could have a piece of paper to refer to and be like, "Oh, I do this, this, this. I haven't matured into this."
mhm.
Um, so that was how I came to Singer.
Yeah, I remember you trying to design you led the design group trying to bring together a lot of design leadership, to create more of a culture around it, I think with Mike Verdu, and I was interested in how that played out, like, it was a weird company, right? It wasn't a creative first company. It had good creative people, and, when I was talking to Paul Madeira's boss, he did the Stardew Valley game and worked on Mafia when you were playing it. He was, uh he was like, "Oh, I was an operator. I was a mechanic. I wasn't a game designer." And he's a real game designer, and so he's right. Like, he didn't do what he's, like, most skilled at. He just kinda plugged a hole and did the thing that the company needed. And designers there, you know, sometimes had to do that, right? And so it's very different from an EA setup. I'm kind of curious, like, how you feel about that time, and what did you do? Like, what were you trying to do at that time, and what did you pull off? I
Yeah.
never got to go because I had code reds every week.
Yeah, you're always working. Mike, I think, was running the design division. I was his, COO at the time.
Mhm.
Um, I sort of mentioned it earlier, but EA, well, actually, EA did hire great designers. The tension at EA was always between, and this helps. This is going to answer the next part of the question. Check the EA. The tension was between designers and marketing. Like, everybody has to hate somebody. So thought they knew more than marketing, and marketing thought they knew more than design. The tension at Zynga was very much between design and PM and it comes from a great place, right? It's who knows the player better, who is
Mhm.
going to make the more successful game. It's not just people being assholes for the sake of being assholes. So
Yeah, it's true.
getting in and Zinger hired great designers, and then they would churn them out because they wouldn't give them this opportunity to do great design. So I think that the first thing I did was kind of bring the design organization together, is make people feel like, because you remember PM was really strong. You were a very
Very true.
data-driven designer, but the PM organization was so strong, they did kind of bulldoze everybody. So I was really,
You had to be a PM to, like,
yeah, they had
really
a
have a
handler.
say, so you had to embrace it or you became
Yeah.
disgruntled, I think.
So I think for design, it was making them feel like they were also, a discipline. It's like, here, if we bring so it was there were some really simple things I did that was super effective. Like, we had a weekly design meeting, and I would
Mhm.
make sure that there were guest speakers, and it was making people feel like, "Wow, look, there's X hundred or so, or 150 designers in a room." There's almost as many of us as there are PMs. Um, like, so when I when I came to Zynga, I remember this email going out really early, like in my first month, and Pincus being like, "Every game must have a designer on it." And I was like, "Wait, what? What have you been doing so far?" Just so shocker, like games need designers. So I was always really protective of designs. That was it, like making design feel like they had a home, letting them see how many of them there were, making them realize that Zynga really did value designers, and there were some really strong ones. And around that time, you probably remember, like, Bob Bates was there, Bill Jackson came in.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
if the company is going out of their way to hire these really strong people, then they do value design. So it was, how do we present? How do we design? How do they present their ideas in a way that's palatable to PM? So you can't just come in with big picture and be like, "We think XYZ, we think a car is, rather than a faster horse, is the way to go." Um, you need to demonstrate in language that the PM understands why car, and why PM should take a risk on you, because
Mhm.
PM know how to incrementally keep people from churning out.
Yeah,
In
it's
fact,
basically a pitch-like culture. It's a startup-like culture because that's where Mark came from, right? And
yeah,
so you had to think like a startup entrepreneur and be able to pitch, like, why your ideas were going to be good to test or not, which
yeah,
is a new paradigm. If you're f So it was interesting. I will tell you this funny story. So I joined Cityville as the design director, and, 2 of the designers are leaving, just they were pretty burned out, and so we have to build a new team, and I was like, so I'm from Wizards, I'm used to working with a group of people that, like, think on things and whatnot and actually try to make a good product, and I was like, I think I want 7 or 8 designers on this team to help support what we're trying to do," and she was like, "You mean you're not gonna do it all on your own?" And it was just completely, like, alien to her how, like, my world of design worked, and it was alien to me how her paradigm worked, right? Now, especially with, like, the tooling the way it is, like, yeah, I could probably do a lot of this stuff on my own, but, like, there are different types of design, right? And so Zynga didn't really have a clue in my mind of, like, what type of design mind to put in which scenario and, like, who was good at what. It's baffling, right? I'm sure when Henry and I talked, Henry Stern worked with me at Wizards and Zynga, and we both had good runs at both places, but, like, there are times where people who are product people just assume what a game designer should do
yeah.
versus, like, how people actually work. There wasn't enough time, I guess. We were moving so fast, but, um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but you have to learn to speak each other's languages, and I think that, to oversimplify those types of people, right? PMs, they tended to be a little more arrogant because they thought they could prove their points, and they would look down on designers as being, airy-fairy and not able to keep the machine going, um, because, it's a business, we have to make money, so PM could slow down the churn, or they could dial up um, the currencies, and
Mhm.
design would just feel run over, but they weren't great at motivating in a way that PM could hear. So I think that's where I sort of tried to help is the company values you, they're hiring you, which we're not using design in the right way. People are churning out, everybody's miserable. So let's try and then, it was a help us, help you situation is what does design need?
Mhm.
Show the PM what they need and how they can be supported and just start a dialogue because it was so antagonistic. I mean, it was there were points where it was terrible. Like designers hated their PMs. And when that's running smoothly, that's just the best partnership. When a
Yeah.
PM and a designer like each other and understand each other. So it was really just trying to I'm a big believer with everything. In everything that we do, everybody's just trying to make a great game. We wanna get paid, we wanna see our families a reasonable amount of the time, but we're making games. We wanna make great games. Like, everybody wants to make a great game. Nobody is just there for a paycheck. There are much better paid ways to get a paycheck.
So I
It's a
I think it starts at the top, and I think that Mark was a finance guy and an entrepreneur, and he wanted to use technology to make money first. And while I think he's also like got artistic sensibilities and is a good creative, he couldn't get out of his own way if he wanted to make a big creative enterprise succeed. Like he made a successful business that I think he could feel proud of. But if he was looking to make something that was like long-standing art, like he failed. And it was like because the reason I think product wins in that scenario is because product by and large is like thinking like a startup leader would, and the designer is not. That's just the DNA is like Mark's. And so if you have Laterno running the company at the time, or Purdue running the company at the time, you're going to end up with very different type of company and product. I don't know that I fault Mark. He might have made the best uh, opportunity out of what was going on at the time. Like he certainly succeeded to an extent. It really depends again on what impact, like what worked versus like what do you want the world to be. And it worked, but is it the world that you wanted to create? I don't know. That's the thing that like he has to figure out for himself.
yeah. I think Zinger, yes, 100%, and to add on, improv, yes, um, uh He I've never worked a company before and since where you could see that, the company culture was set from the top. Like,
Oh
everybody
yeah.
and you wanted to be in Mark's good books. Um, but I do think eventually he did value design, and maybe he valued it for the wrong reason. Maybe he's like, "Okay, now there's nobody left to copy. We've copied everybody, and now we're the leader. We're the, 100-pound gorilla, not 100-pound, whatever gorilla weighs, 1,000-pound gorilla. We have to make our own design. We have to be in the forefront." And as a business decision, maybe not from the heart, he decided that we needed designers. But yeah, look at what Brian Reynolds did with Zinger East, and one of the reasons
Yeah.
those guys were successful is they were somewhat isolated. He's like, "This is my team, and I'm over here doing this." And he did value designers, and he had Paul
Oh, a
Stefanoff,
lot. Yeah. He's a
great
designer.
for the
Yeah.
show, by the way, if you haven't talked to Paul. Yeah, and you see it now. I mean, you still see it at EA. Like, look at what Respawn's done, and it's the same way. It's like if you're gonna acquire a studio or you're gonna build a studio, some people they're gonna ring those things and be like, "We're over here doing our stuff. We're not part of the Borg."
Yeah. I saw Paul. It's fun. Like so Nina brought together a lot of the different creative leadership, which was very strong. Brian Tinsman's been on here already. He was in that group. It wouldn't Ben Sack, who's been on here, was in that group. Henry Stern, who's coming on in a couple of weeks, was in that group. Uh, and many different people were really great. And it actually did bring us together a bit. I actually saw Paul last year when I was traveling through Scandinavia. I was in Stockholm and I
Yeah,
was like, hey, man, let's get together. And it's really nice to see different folks doing well. I was lucky enough to get to work with Tim Letourneau at Warner before recent times, but
yeah,
yeah, he was quite a lot of really wonderful people. that went on to do really interesting projects, and had success at Zynga too. It's just different type of success. Depends on what you optimize for, right?
Yep, yeah.
So the theoretical question that occurred to me about an hour ago, um, was really like, by the time you get to Zynga, the company's really large. So you have Mafia Wars that's successful. You have Poker that's successful. You have Cafe World that's figured it out. They're successful. Cityville's very successful. Farmville's very successful. And there are a bunch of mobile studios. And there are a couple of aspects to the company that are becoming problematic. One, people who are heroes or champions in the first year are starting to get bitter and resentful for reasons. Maybe they're tired or burnt out. So there's this cohort of people that like they were great and now they're probably cancerous, right? That's a thing that shows up. There are too many bets going on where I think in Verdue's group, he's got to manage about like a dozen satellite studios. He has the Bill Jackson in the Age of Empires team, who he knows well, but he has a lot. I mean, he has LA with Amir Rahimi and Amir,
Chris Corey.
both Amirs and Chris Corey, right? And Hans. And so you have like different constellations like Nabil and Seth and et cetera in Boston. You have some really great teams, but there's so much going on and there's so much velocity around it. They start acquiring all these weird studios, Draw Something and Frank Lance's group. And we're like, how do you manage all this? So there's this question for me, like, what should Zynga have been doing? Are there things that you would do in retrospect that would help like course correct or make it wasn't right to do all those things? Was it mostly a defensive measure to like make sure others didn't like disrupt the success or growth? Like, how would you think about the cultural aspect and also the like width access, like aspect to try to make the company make a bit more sense as it approaches the IPO? Is that fair? Is that too crazy a question? We did not agree on this ahead
Yeah,
of time.
no, it's a great question. I'm not sure that I can answer it. I think with all the acquisitions and growing the studios, I mean, most of that happened under Mike. And I mean, you would have to ask Mike, but my guess is that he some of that was because he did value design, right? You
Oh,
know,
he
we
did for
had
sure.
all the yeah, and once they became and we ran external studios, so Zynga, do you remember my group was ZXS? We thought it was hilarious. So,
Mhm.
because it was Zynga External Studios, and then we were like we were just everything had to be done to XS. Um, they because they ran under external studios, they ran under Mike, so he could actually protect those guys a bit more. So they were like satellite studios, Boston and Dallas.
Oh yeah.
That
Mhm.
he was actually hoping and some of it was really successful, like the boss fight guys who stick together, often anyway.
Yep.
I think that he was hoping that he instead of some sort of homogenized stuff that maybe was happening back here in San Francisco where people were burnt out, we have an opportunity to try a bunch of smaller experiments where people did learn from each other. So we
Mhm.
pretty regularly brought the, Zynga External Studios leadership together with the San Francisco leadership in the hope that we could get some sort of cross-pollinization. So I think that's why that happened. Whether that was great right before IPO, I don't know. I can't answer that. Um, but I think it came down to Mike really thinking that we needed, an injection of more senior leadership. If you think about those people, most of those people had made games before, like Words with
Oh yeah.
Friends. So people had, established cultures, which were probably slightly less toxic than Zynga was at sometimes. They knew how to ship games. They knew how to course correct. Some of them knew how to run live games, which Zynga didn't
That's
really
hard.
have
Yeah.
to do it. Like we knew how to launch games, but the churn on getting that content out there that's what drove people out. Is you had these creatives who launched a game, and then suddenly you didn't get 2 weeks comp time like you did at EA, and you didn't get, like, a break where you went onto a new team. Suddenly, you were running a live game, and people didn't want to.
Mhm.
Yeah, we saw that even at EA, like, even on Battlefront, we put out seasons and chapters after the game, and people just wanted a break.
Similar to what we were talking about with working with an IP holder, there's a certain skin that you need to have to enjoy doing that. And if you're working on a live game, you need a different skin. who enjoy doing that. And I think they are very different mentalities. You can do both, but you'll probably burn out if you try to do a really high quality product in a sustained way, like without a lot of lead time and protection. Like Monopoly Go hopefully had like a fair amount of like understanding of what they were going to do after launch such that they didn't kill the team. But I've never heard anything from that quarter that was like the team was in crazy pains. But maybe I should ask. One of your former design folks worked on that game. And it's interesting. So Massimo was working on Mafia 2 when you were running your thing. He and I talked. I was at Modern Health working on mental health platform for people who really need it. And at the time, he came over to my house and he was like, "Man, what's it like not to work on games?" And now, like 5 years later or whatnot, he's working on a giant success, and I'm really interested to see his smile now. I'm like, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
thing is like." Also, it was a lot easier to work on not games. I don't know if you remember what it was like to work on not games so long ago, but it is way easier to work on technology or like a simple
Oh,
SaaS
yeah.
service than making a game.
That's what I mean. When people work on games, they it's because they wanna work on games. Like,
Yeah.
they wanna work on games, it's creative, you typically are working with a bunch of people that you like or admire. Like, we could all go make something else for more money elsewhere, but it would be drier and it wouldn't be games.
Hmm, I agree. I'm not.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I'm like, I like everything we've talked about, and now I'm thinking, what do I want to talk about next? What do you want to talk about next?
Next.
What about those swords behind you?
Oh, the sword. Everybody asks about the
Is
swords.
this is this like the brutal end to?
The swords are the actual swords that we used in, one of the Lord of the Rings video games, several of them actually, and they were made by Weta, who made the swords for the movies because we used the same stunt guys. We hired the same stunt guys from the movies to make sure that um, all of the mocap looked accurate.
Mhm.
And I had to fly. We couldn't. We did the mocaps was done at EA's mocap studio in Canada. I live in San Francisco. Obviously, Weta's in New Zealand. And I couldn't get them there through customs fast enough. We couldn't get them we could fly the guys there, but we couldn't get the swords there. So I ended up flying to New Zealand, picking up the swords. There was 2 swords, there was a bow and arrow, there was an axe, there was a bunch of stuff in the morning. It was another one of those times I didn't stay overnight. And then I put them in my checked luggage. They were literally in polystyrene in checked luggage. And I changed back in LA. And then I'm sure you've done this. You know, like when you clear customs, you have to pick up your luggage and then take it
Mhm.
somewhere else and recheck it. So I had to take all this. I mean, so when I was checking it, they're like, "What is in here? Is there any weapons?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, there's like a sword, an axe, a bow and arrow." And I had to, like, check them back in LA, pick them up again on the luggage carousel in LA, in San Francisco, come home, stay the night, and then go back and recheck them in San Francisco to fly to Vancouver so that we could use them with our Mocha team. And so that's where they came from, and I never s
That's
that
cool.
was for 1 year. And then a few years ago, I was working on another I moved into BD, and I was doing the Lord of the Rings deal, and a friend of mine who shall remain nameless knew I was working on another Lord of the Rings deal, and he was moving. He's like, "Hey, I've got all these swords that I stole from the eBay cupboard because nobody wanted them at my house." He's like, "And I'm not moving them." He's like, "Do you want these swords?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I want the swords." That's where the swords came from.
Have they ever come off the wall?
Yeah, when Edie's having play dates, kids are always, like, trying to take them off the wall, and they're not, like, sword sharp, but
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
be they should not be hung. They're hung on you probably recognize it, they're hung on guitar hooks.
Oh, yeah. I do
Yeah.
recognize. I have a question that came up. I asked it to Justin Sinicolo, and it's a you've been around in Silicon Valley for a long time, and there was a famous Substacker who made a comment in one of his posts about how tech billionaires or wealthy tech people like don't care about culture, and I I was like, "Oh, you're just fanning the flames without understanding the people involved." But I was kind of curious, do you think the tech billionaires or the tech set, like, care about culture in the sense of, like, what culture was like 30 years ago, or don't they? Like,
Hmm.
how should we think about it? Because I don't like the oversimplification to just make people rally in the Luddite direction. Is it more nuanced than that?
I think he might be right. I think he might be
No, 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 it's fine if you think that.
I mean, what do you mean? I mean, it's really hard to
Yourself.
ask, right? Because as soon as you say tech billionaire, you don't think of all the tech billionaires out there. You think of asshole tech billionaires that don't care about people and only care about money
Yeah,
because they're fucking billionaires, so therefore that's true.
but
If
there's both,
you
right? There's
Yeah, I mean, if they're tech
some
billionaires, then already they're a certain type of person because,
Mhm.
nobody should be a billionaire. Um, but if you're talking about rich people running technology and when we don't automatically put them in the asshole category, do they care about culture? Only in so much as a good culture is good for business. So it's like saying, do you care about people? Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they are all assholes. But if you have unhappy people, they're going to make shitty product.
Mhm.
So I do think they care about having a good culture because ultimately it will make them more money. So
Well, what do you like, you end up having to think, like, more broadly than that, right? Where you're like, and this is when you're at, like, the population level, or you're thinking about how the government should work. Like, how do you make sure that, like, there's enough to go around so that the culture outside the company also, like, is healthy to support it, right? Both have to go
yeah,
hand in hand. It's not just
yeah.
one without the other.
So it's business though. So it's like, do they care about it altruistically? No. Do they care about it because it's ultimately good for the bottom line? Probably.
Who should care about the former? Like, who's responsible for making sure the whole is also cared for?
Well, so remember, I don't know if they still do it. Like there were for a while there were these God, what were they called? I thought it would be a good role for me back in the day. It wasn't chief people officer, it was chief morale officer. They
Okay.
were remember that? There was chief morale officers, and I was like, "I would love to be a chief morale officer if I had a budget and people," and it was actually uh, not recognized, but respected role. Like, there's nothing I would like more than to go into a company that was hurting because it had a fucked up culture, find out why it was fucked up and what we could do to fix it. I would love that as a role. So, I sort of forgot the question in there, but it was whose role would it be to fix it? But again, that could
Yeah,
be we're still talking about the tech billionaires. They might not be doing it altruistically, but it will be that person's job. But
I
that person
agree.
has to believe it. That person that's like people sometimes ask me what makes me good at my job or what my like unique um uh positivity is. It's that I don't really ever lie. I can always make myself like someone even if I don't like them because there's always something I like, right? I like the way they treat their kids, or I like a band that they like or something.
Even Stalin liked his dog, right? So,
Right. Yeah, yeah, Hitler was a vegetarian.
oh
Um,
god,
um,
that's that's
yeah,
too far, too
I know, let's
far,
not go there right now.
too far. No, no, those two are not allowed on the list.
I just read a book, Anima Rising. It's Christopher Moore book, and it's not
Mhm.
like his normal books, but even Hitler has a cameo in it. It was a fun book. Um, so if even if that person's put in place because it's good for business, I do think that if that role was a real role, they could make an absolute massive difference at a company. If the question is whose role is that to do that in life, I'm a little bit pessimistic that that person exists in our culture right now.
No, I understand. That is meant to be uncomfortably hard to answer.
Yeah.
Much like this next question. No, I'm just kidding. So,
Where's
you're on
softball questions?
no,
What's your
this is a
favorite
softball
pet?
question.
What's your favorite book?
This is that. This is going that direction. So you're on, an island, you're trapped there for the rest of your life. You get to have books, movies, or games. Which category do you pick?
The books.
And then if you can only have 6 books, what are the 6 books you allow yourself? on the island, and they will never be damaged, no matter what happens, no matter what weather condition. They are magically treated so they survive and in the same shape as you love them.
Um, Player of games. I would take The Lord of the Rings because it's massive and it can class as one book.
Hmm. Sure.
Um, there's a book called The Knowledge of Angels, which I used to belong to a book club when I was a little kid, and I'm pretty sure that I ordered this book by mistake. Because when you read the thing on the back of it, I'm like, I wouldn't have read that book, but I really liked it, and it was the first book I read that kind of had ironic tragedy in it. I'd like to read that again. I haven't read it in a long time, so I might kick it out of my six. Oh my gosh, this is too difficult. Um,
I'll tell a story if you want while you come up with your list.
Go on then, please tell a story.
So, similar to what you just described, when I was in sixth grade or fifth grade, I told my dad that I wanted to see the Bruce Willis movie that the kids at school were all raving about. And so he takes me to the theater and we watch a Bruce Willis movie. And it's a movie about a Vietnam veteran who is coping with all of the hardships that he has faced and unable to like come back to like being in, who he was before. And the movie I wanted to see was Look Who's Talking. And that's just a metaphor for everything that's happened in my life since.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Okay, I thought of one more. I
That's
love
fine.
Shantaram. I read that book once or twice, but then I listened to the audiobook. I bought it because it was a really good use of credit on Audible once because it's really long.
Mhm.
And it's narrated by the author and it's amazing. It made me cry a couple of times. I've listened to the audiobook twice. That's four, and I just can't pick favorites. I really like Salman Rushdie. I have a really diverse taste in literature. I like the Joe Abercrombie book. I tell you what, I can't do what I'll do, but I haven't read the new. Actually, it's not even new right now. The new Joe Abercrombie one. That's like I think it's like almost a year old.
Mhm.
Um,
Why isn't it the books that are painted on your
One
steps?
of them is. One of them is. So
Okay.
Knowledge of Angels is on the steps. And I hadn't realized that those books are mostly English until somebody said it. None of them are American, but that wasn't deliberate. It was just, and I didn't, and it's not my favorite books on the steps. It's my favorite book in each genre. So I think Player of
Yeah.
Games is there. Um, and then
So if you
there's a comedian that I follow, and she does some book reviews, and she did one recently of which Dragon Crawler Carl is on there, which I'm
oh,
listening to
it's
now, which is hilarious. Um,
yeah, it's pretty good.
I would there you asked me about games. I'd like to make a game of that. That would be cool.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a natural fit.
but she's talking about that book, and she's like, everyone's gonna hate me for the last one. And she didn't like Anna Karenina, which is on my steps. And I was like, I don't know if I'd
Right.
like Anna Karenina right now because just recently I've stopped liking books that have impending doom. They start to really annoy me. I'm like, just don't make that decision.
I
Um,
I do that with music. Like, if I hear whining, I just, like, immediately turn it off. There's, like, Taylor Swift albums where she's just, like, moaning and whining and not happy anymore and will never be happy again, and, like, I cannot take it.
so I'm like that with
Uh,
Morrissey. Even back in the day when all of my friends loved Morrissey, even if I had complete overlap, like the Venn diagrams all were almost circles, I
mhm,
could never get into Morrissey. I'm like, "Stop being such a big whiner, like, just cheer
seriously.
up."
You are not invited over, Morrissey. Whatever event I'm throwing, like, I'll have an invite list, and then I'll have a not invited call out for you specifically.
Yeah.
So, one thing we didn't say, so, like, your house may be like a destination. Do people go to your house on purpose?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
like, you have steps. Each step that you see from the street is painted with, like, a beautiful mural of a book that you love, right? And so, how many people do you get visiting you on purpose, not because
Loads.
they're
Yeah, I
vagrant or
didn't
whatnot?
know that. I didn't know it, and it doesn't and I quite like it, but yeah, there's always people out there taking selfies in front of the stairs, which is funny. I like it.
Yeah,
My
you
son
have
was
added something.
Yeah. They are, yeah, it's my favorite book in each genre, I think it is. And I couldn't tell you without looking what's there anymore, even though they've been there for 5+ years. I walk up and down them every day.
If you send me a picture, I would put it in the bio of
Okay, I'll send
this
you. I'll send you.
release.
Yeah, it's really cute because I'm friends with the woman who works at Tolkien Enterprises. Actually, I think they're called something else right now. And Lord of the Rings is on the steps, and when
Hmm.
she came by our house, she asked me if she could take a picture and put it in their mailer. It's really sweet.
The nerdiest thing you've ever done. And I say this partly knowing that I had a chat yesterday with a really fun fellow who like ran a he is like incredibly interesting. But what would you say the nerdiest thing is that you've ever done?
My boyfriend thinks it's hilarious because I have red hair and sometimes people think I'm quote unquote cool, but I'm actually a real giant nerd, as you know, which is
Mhm.
probably adds to our friendship. So the nerdiest thing I've done this week is I made a spreadsheet of all the non-alcoholic drinks I've tried, and it has multiple columns because I wanted to know what they were, whether they were good by taste, value for money, whether you could mix them, whether you could carry them to a party. So I made a spreadsheet and sent it to all my friends that aren't drinking right now. And the nerdiest thing I've done in life that I used to put as things people don't know about you is I used to be a lexicographer, and I worked for Oxford University Press. So, yeah, I did an English language and literature degree, and then I worked for OUP making dictionaries.
Wow, that comes full circle, I think. Albert, at the beginning of this call, made a comment that Encyclopedia was one of my favorite computer games in the 90s, and Dictionary is right up there.
HME, Hutchinson Multimedia Encyclopedia. That's how that works. All I ever wanted for the first 19 years of my long life is I wanted to write children's books.
Mhm.
And then I went to work for Dorling Kindersley right out of school. Actually, not, but no, it was my second job. My first job was telesales or something. But I went to write children's books, and I hated it. At that time, they didn't write your employment contracts, so you had to. And first of all, I lived in Oxford. This was in Covent Garden, so it was a really long commute, and I had to be there by 9 and work till 5. And they only owned the material you wrote during the day or the work you did during the day. So if you had a genius idea on the way home on the bus or on the train or bus, trains, and automobiles, as it actually really was to get to Covent Garden from Oxford, it didn't work. It was the most uncreative job that I ever had, and I hated it, and I didn't like my boss, and I went out at lunchtime and had 2 pints with my friend Belinda and came back and quit. This does take us full circle, actually. I came back, I quit, and I got on the bus home, and as I was on the bus home, my old boss from when I was a student called me, and he's like, "Do you know anybody like you that would like to, edit these encyclopedias starting next Monday?" And I was like, "I know somebody exactly like me that would like to start editing these encyclopedias for you on Monday." So that's how that happened. Attica Interactive, that company was called. So that's how I went there.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You have lived, and you continue to live.
Yeah. Okay, I have one. I thought you were gonna do softballs. What's your
Oh,
favorite movie?
my favorite movie is probably Wonder Boys. It comes up. It's something I talk about in the book, and, like, I love that. Did you ever read that book
Your
or
book?
movie? Well, no,
That's what
no,
I
not my book, although you we can talk for that offline. You will be I'll give you the quiz that I have to give everyone, but, um, have you watched Wonder Boys?
I have. Yeah. It's an awesome movie.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I was visiting my friend Randy, who I talked to a week or 2 ago, and his wife Dell in Pittsburgh, and they were shooting the movie Wonder Boy in the neighborhood, and I couldn't park anywhere, and it was really annoying. And I had a great time in Pittsburgh. It was really fun. We learned a lot. The next week, Randy and Eric and the rest of our team made a bunch of money with my losses, helping them because we learned how not to do things. And yeah, so they were recording Wonder Boys while we were there. So it's kind of like, when I wrote my book, Wonder Boys, I would say, is one of the reference books that I had in mind. It's, a story of that time in your life when you're still kind of figuring it out.
Yeah. Cool. I have to rewatch it. I don't remember it very well. I tell people my favorite movie is Blade Runner, which it
But
probably is.
really,
Huh?
but it probably is. Okay.
It probably is. As you can tell, as I've waffled around this interview, I have trouble actually, Edie, I don't really I have trouble with favorites because it
Hmm.
depends what mood you're in. Edie will never say I can't even ask her who her favorite teacher is because she'll feel sorry for the other teachers, so she won't even
Oh,
tell
that's
you.
nice.
And her stuffed toys, it's really sweet. Yeah, Blade Runner might be, but I also really, really love actually, I like Terminator 2, which is still in the sci-fi. T2, I think, is genius, but I love In the Mood for Love, the Wong Kar-wai movie, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's amazing. I love that. It's just even now I'm like, "Oh." And I made Bill watch it, and he fell asleep. And we've never gone back and finished it together. To be honest, we had been partying that weekend. But he's back in school right now, and, one of the things he's doing is filmography, and that
Hmm.
movie came up, and he's like, "Oh, we should go back and finish that movie." I'm like, "Yes, we should."
Yes,
Um,
but if you fall asleep again, this will be the cost.
yeah, I
Put a
watched that
bounty on, negative bounty.
Time Out flick. Oh, yeah, it's so good, that movie.
Yeah, it's almost like if you didn't watch it, what game mechanic would you apply in that situation? Would you use Wither? Would like there's
Oh my god.
yeah, there's so many different game mechanics to apply here.
What did I just watch? It was a remake of Save the Green Planet,
Hmm.
um, which I didn't think they could ever remake, but, it was good. Yeah.
Have you watched The Descendants 4,000 times?
Evie has. Evie has. I didn't like
Oh,
Evie has. I didn't like Rise of Red, which I think is 4. Um, I don't really like any of them, but I do like the music.
the music's really good. Micah is going to be in the musical for The Descendants. She is Snow White, and she is in the ensemble, but there might be a chance that she gets to play Jane in the other ensemble, but, crossing fingers.
Oh,
But
you should totally invite us. Like Evie would
I just
get
did
such
pretty
a kick out
much.
of that. Yeah, well, you have to tell me when. You have to get on my spreadsheet.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, I'll I'll tell you when I know, I will tell you. And I think it'll probably be a really good show for a middle school. It's kind
Yeah.
of
Tell me as far out
abnormally
as you can, because
good.
like, I book a long way out. I said to somebody the other day that my dance card was full, and they literally didn't know that expression. So yeah,
What's a
let me know.
dance card? Yeah, you're not from I mean, it hasn't applied in basically our entire lives. When did people have dance cards?
No, but it's still a phrase, right?
Yeah, it's still a phrase. I
Yeah.
understand you, but my children won't understand me. They don't understand most of the things that we lived with are gone.
Yeah.
I try to tell my daughter, how stores used to work, how, like, she was like, "They didn't have Amazon, you couldn't get it immediately," and she's like, "Where is my stuff?" And it's like, "It'll be here in 2 days," but in the past, you would probably never get it, so, like,
Yeah.
like, have a little perspective,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
if she used a phone a lot or started playing around with AI, she would have expectations that things would move even faster than that, much like I do whenever I do those things and
Oh,
then
yeah.
feel terrible.
Or if the iOS slows down your iPad, which is what's happening to Edie right now. Now it's like the end of the world. I'm like, you realize that you'll still go. This is going to space and back.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's not good enough, so do
it's not
better.
enough. Yeah. Anything
Well,
else?
nothing further, Your Honor. I have enjoyed getting to chat with you, and, I'll you send
Yes.
me the
Yes.
books, and I'll send you the dates,
Yes, please. Let's do that.
and, I am willing to do, Descendants karaoke at any time.
Just okay.
It's karaoke.
I'm assuming that your kids were also big on Demon Hunters.
Yeah, they were, those songs are pretty good too. Um,
They are. I actually like Golden. I know it's the one that everyone likes, but I still like it. We went to a panto in England, and it was I've forgotten what it was right now, but it incorporated Golden into it. I like it when things are relevant like that. It was certainly not a K-pop Panto. It's behind you.
Good idea.
Yep. All right, my love. Well, let me know if you need anything. Give me a shout out if you're coming into the city. We could do lunch or something, and I'll bring Edie out there or something,
Sounds
something.
good.
All right.
Deal. All right, live your life. It's good to see you.
Bye.
It's bye.